senior project, I went up to the Memorial School and taught 7th grade social studies with Mr. Baltimore. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to explore Bo's education system, see why we got ranked best in the state. And I don't know, I want to go into teaching after high school, so I just wanted to explore it. So yeah, Mr. Baltimore helped me a lot. He gave me a lot of insight into going down the career path that I want to, exploring teaching, all that. And teaching with the kids, it was eye-opening because it let me see like how it actually was and how difficult teaching was. It gave me a lot of respect for teachers at this school. So that's my project. My project was pretty straightforward. I just went up and taught like history, Roman history and stuff. What the presentation is going to be about is more our education system and, in my opinion, how it needs to be changed and stuff. So, for pretty much all of us, No Child Left Behind, which was introduced in 2001, that had a huge impact. Why you have all of our standardized testing, why we need to meet all of these standards, and basically, the No Child Left Behind system, schools had to meet certain requirements to get federal funding. So that's why we have ECAPs, NEWAs. It's not the only reason, but it changed that environment a lot. So that standardization, in my opinion, I think it's good in some respects because it keeps everyone on a level playing field, but in other respects, it sort of caters to the lowest common denominator and can stunt people's growth in school. So I think one of the biggest things about education is having context to what you're learning. So understanding why we're being taught something, I think that's one of the most important things. In my project, one of my lessons that stands out to me is I taught about Hadrian's Wall, which is a wall that the Romans put up in the early 80s and was really pretty unimportant to current day. But I managed to connect, the kids understood, and I thought that was really good because sometimes in classes, not so much history classes, but other classes, math and stuff, it's hard to understand why we're being taught things. And it's like, why am I learning the method for doing slope? Like, what is the point of that? So, our educational system, we kind of need to understand the origins of it to grasp how it works. So basically, in the late 1700s, actually, and early 1800s, mandatory public education was created. In Prussia, which is just sort of North Germany or Poland nowadays. So basically, what Frederick the Great, he was the leader of Prussia at the time, he had a couple people in his country that wanted to create a public education system to better Prussia and keep them up with the standards of the changing world at the time, which in the 1800s, creating a mandatory public education system was a really big deal. But today, this system is often referred to as factory education, which is doesn't sound great. And it's a system, obviously it's undergone a lot of changes, but it's a system that's basic format is sort of still what we use. And Bo is a really good progressive district compared to other schools. And so maybe this isn't the best school to be doing this presentation at, but overall, it's the same basic format as what was created in the late 1700s, which is like 200 years. So basically the factory education system, in my opinion, I think it's really bad for individualism. It makes us fit this mold. And I think that trying to make someone fit a mold isn't a good way to educate. I think you need to create a mold for that person and have education be an individualized experience. So, yeah. Kind of lost my train of thought, hold on. Basically, the reason the Prussian education system was created, as I just mentioned, is it was created to keep Prussia going and keep them paced with an ever-changing world and stuff. Because in the 1700s, 1800s, the world was undergoing a lot of change. And I think the same can be said for today, because our world is changing pretty rapidly, and our education system isn't keeping up with it. I mean, it is in some respects, but I don't know, I feel like the US is kind of falling behind in terms of education compared to some European countries and stuff. So I think our education system needs to undergo a change where it's more individualized and caters to people figuring out what they want to do instead of you get out of high school, oh cool, go to college, what do you want to do? I have no idea. So I think there needs to be more preparation for people's futures as opposed to just, come do some math, do some history, learn this, and you don't have context. That sort of brings me back to my point of context, understanding why you're learning things and learning things that are relevant to what you want to do is what I think is really, really important. So I didn't get a ton of chance to do that with my project because I was teaching 7th graders, and they're not really at a crucial turning point in their education. But yeah, so Ms. Lavaz was my mentor. Ms. Wu helped me a lot with content, and obviously Ms. Dustin was my teacher. So yeah, that's it.
In life, there are two general things you can do with your money. You can spend it, or you can save it. Now, there are a lot of subcategories I can include, but these all boil down to either spending or saving. If I gave everyone $1,000 right now, I'm willing to bet most of you are thinking, spend first, save later. In all honesty, before I started this project, I was thinking, buy first, spend later. And that strategy sounds great now. For most of us, we are young, and we can always make that money back. However, that will not be the case in the future, and the not-so-distant future. In a few years, we will be getting out of college. Most of us with debt. Suddenly, our spend first, save second later thing doesn't look so good. Now what if I told you, today, there may be a way to avoid a lot of that stress. If you can take a look at what you're saving before spending, specifically investing your money, you may be able to avoid a lot of problems in the future. And that's just the near future. Later in our lives, we are going to want to stop working and do what we've always wanted to do. There's only one problem with that. Once you stop working, you lose your income. How are you supposed to fund the thing you've always wanted to do with no money? Again, take a look at what you do today. Investing before spending can really help you. Getting into the market early can be the difference between a home in Florida for the summer and working 9 to 5 till you're 80 years old. So how does one go about investing in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, and other equities? There are a lot of places out there that can tell you what to do, how to do it. Most of them, however, are very unreliable. Investing can actually be quite simple if you keep a few things in mind. Most important of those things to remember is you are the biggest factor in your success. You can be the reason you do really well, or you can be the reason you end up with no money to fall back on 50 years from now. The worst thing you can do is panic. I've talked to many professionals, and all of them have said the same thing. The more you panic and overreact, the worse off you are. So how do I know this? For my project, I created a strategy for long-term investing in the stock market, and not panicking is highlighted a lot. I have taken what I've collected from hours of research, and by research, I mean interviews with multiple professionals from places such as Fidelity Investments and Wells Fargo Advisors. I've also spent time job shadowing Mr. Davis, a financial advisor here in Concord, New Hampshire. I've spent hours in Boston's financial district. I've read multiple books, and of course I've been all over the internet. The research I collected led to my strategy, a young investor's guide to success. This strategy highlights 5 main points, which are diversify, have a constant stream of money, avoid large fees, mind your taxes, and sit back and watch the plan work. These were the 5 most common themes found in almost all of the sources I looked at. I also researched how famous stock scams have influenced the stock market we see today. Why? Because rules don't just pop out of nowhere. I explored businesses such as WorldCom and Enron, as well as people like Ivan Boesky, and how they were able to take people's money and use it for their own personal gain. So why is investing better than just saving your money? Every year, your money sits in a bank. It is losing about 2% of its worth. Of course, the bank's going to give you interest, but it's not going to be 2%. If you invest some of that money, it will keep up with inflation. That's not all, though. If you were to start investing now, you can take more of a risk, which means more of a reward. As you get older, you lose your tolerance to loss, and it becomes harder to invest in something with a high risk, and it becomes harder to have a higher reward. However, there are always some drawbacks, especially with risk and reward. A lot of people don't understand that there's a chance you can lose money in the short run. The market, on a year like this, has been up and down, which can be scary for some people. However, if you look at this graph, over 10 years, the money had earned 3% interest on your investments, and in 10 years, you made a profit of $4,305. It's not too bad. So where do you see yourself in 50 years? Think about how you're going to be able to fund that lifestyle. Investing now can save you years of work. According to CNN Money, The average person should be saving about 15% of their yearly income for retirement starting at age 20. Most people neglect this and end up working past the average age of retirement of 35. Oh, 65, sorry. But you can help yourself now by investing just a little bit each month. Say you invest $100 a month starting freshman year. By the time you get out of high school, you've already invested $4,800. Say you continue to invest $100 a month each month for 20 years. That's $24,000 by the end, plus a 5% average return. That will put you ahead of half of the other 38-year-olds. Obviously, you hope your investments each month increase as you get a job and get an income, which will only put you closer to your goal of retirement. This will make your life a lot easier. The stock market can be a wonderful place if you're willing to put in the risk to enjoy the reward. Investing now can change the way you live your life. It can make college debt a lot easier to manage and retirement a lot more enjoyable. Plus, it's always fun to make some money. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. As most of you may know, I'm Ben Siegel, and I'm here to talk about both my journey through senior seminar and the importance of community service to me. For as long as I can remember, I have somehow been part or involved with community service. Here's a picture of me and my cousin Jackson at a charity run. I can't really remember what the run was for, but we were there to raise money for some cause. Although we probably made that run hell for both of our parents and everybody else at the run with our antics, we did the right thing by going and raising money. Much like that charity walk, I thought it was the right idea to be involved with the community for my senior project. This is the Boys and Girls Club of Central New Hampshire, and it's a very special place to me. Not just because they pay me to play floor hockey with kids. Well, maybe that adds a little bit to it. But all jokes aside, this place is special to me because it's where I can connect and give back to the community. Last year, I spent about 100 hours here. I would go 3 days a week and 2 hours a night. During this time, I would help the kids with the most difficult tasks, such as watching movies and playing dodgeball. But although mercilessly defeating 11-year-olds one after another in ping pong was pretty enjoyable, I didn't really make much of a massive impact, aside from the fact that nobody wanted to play ping pong. After my second summer working with the club, I decided that it was time for me to make a bigger impact. I wanted to make that impact that I hadn't achieved in last year's volunteering, but I didn't know how to do it. After anticipating the dread and despair that was the end of my summer, I remember one of the classes that I had to take. That class was senior sem. Fast forward about a month, and now we're in school. After talking to some of my friends about what we were going to do for our senior projects, I decided that I would just do a little bit more community service. But after hearing about some of the other projects, I knew I could do something much more bigger. And this was my chance to make that impact. I still, though, had no idea what to do. And after talking with Mrs. Dustin and some other people, I decided that I was going to hold a spaghetti dinner at the Boys and Girls Club, or at Bow High School. I chose spaghetti because it's cheap, it's easy to cook, and who doesn't like spaghetti? So a couple weeks later, I go to the Boys and Girls Club, Central New Hampshire, and the dinner was to be held at Bow High School like we planned. Talked to Dr. Hausmeyers and people at Bow High School, and the dinner was on. In the meantime, my other part of the project was volunteering, but I was still doing the same things that I was last year. I was going to the Boys and Girls Club a couple times a week for about 2 hours a night, and I ended up with around 30 hours. During these 30 hours, I learned a lot, both about myself and the kids. I became much more grateful for what I have, such as a stable household. And I saw also that the kids were no different from me. I knew that I was making the impact on the entire time. This realization made me understand that I was doing much more than just some project. Fast forward about a month or two, and the dinner's coming up. At this point, the only supplies that I have are the olive oil. I needed donations, but I was having no luck with responses from the supermarkets, and I was starting to panic. So I went down to the Boys and Girls Club of Central New Hampshire to talk about the much-needed donations. Set up a plan to get the rest of the food. I was going to wait for a call for 2 places to come and donate. But 4 days before the dinner, I got an email saying that they had bailed. And I was really panicking. I didn't know what to do. And I still don't know what I would do because miraculously the food was at the house that night when I got home. Now I could focus on the most important part of my project, the dinner. Fast forward to the day before the dinner, which was now to be held at the Boys and Girls Club of Central New Hampshire because of problems with the school and another event that was conflicting. We had everything we needed and began to cook. The preparation took all day. We were ready for dinner about 5 hours of cooking, but come time for dinner and only about 20 people showed up. All my hard work had gone to waste, or did it? We still had all the food to donate to the club, plus a little bit of money. Even though I was able to donate to the club though, I still didn't feel like I accomplished my goal. The man who I worked with to make the dinner happen, Bob Carter from the Boys and Girls Club, came over to me and told me that I had done a good job and helped a lot. On the outside, I told him, yeah, thanks, but on the inside, I asked myself how, and I really was skeptical. Then I started to understand it wasn't about the money or the food. It was about the fact that I gave my time and effort, and that's all that mattered. I then thought about the senior sem class and my essential question, which was, do organizations like the Boys and Girls Club help kids? I started to understand that it wasn't just the organization itself that was making a difference, but it was the people who worked there that gave their time. I understood that I made the impact the whole time, even since last year when I was volunteering. I knew that it wasn't about volunteering because it was the right thing. It was about all the high fives from the kids, all their smiles, helping them with homework, and even beating them over and over again in ping pong. The volunteering had come full circle. Not only had I answered my essential question through personal experience, I had another question to ask myself. What more can I do to keep making that impact? Thank you.
Yeah, but he's definitely going today. I saw him and he was all suited up and ready to go.
Joy, are you taking a lunch break now?
I'm not supposed to be.
You're gonna have another one then, right?
I have 2